Hi everybody, my name is Rob. I'm 42 years old. Have you ever been in a situation that would transform your whole life? This is exactly what happened to me, and it turned my life upside down. But before I tell you my story, I want to tell you about me. I'm an ordinary person. I'm married. I have a wife and a daughter. I have an ordinary house, an ordinary car, and an ordinary job. I'm a sales manager in a retail store. It's just like everyone else. Nothing special. I am probably the most ordinary person ever. I'm so ordinary that I have never done anything special in my whole life. My classmates at school would always push me to play some wild tricks. For example, they wanted to drop a water bomb from the school window right in the head of our school principal. But I didn't do that. In fact, I went to our school principal and reported it back to him. Oh, I had a tough time after that. They bullied and boycotted me. When I got into college, I kept my head down. My classmates would always encourage me to do something wild, such as to steal a mascot from our rival football team. But I would always refuse. Then one day, Susan, the girl whom I really liked, said, "Do it for me and I'll go on a date with you." But I still wouldn't do that. A week later, our local sunshine eye candy Joe stole this mascot, and Susan went on a date with him. My dad has always wondered at me, and he said, "How did you ever get married and have kids?" He thinks I'm the most boring person in the world. He's even joking that probably I'm not his son at all. So my life went by. I did not stand out. I didn't do anything extraordinary, but I didn't do bad things either. And then after all these years, my life started falling apart. Things are getting really bad at work. My boss is threatening to get me fired if I don't achieve my sales target this month. My wife has filed for divorce, and I'm sure she's got a new boyfriend. My teenage daughter hates me because I'm always lecturing her how to live. She thinks I'm a totally sucking and boring old boy. I'm also 2 months behind on my house mortgage payment schedule, and they're threatening to kick me out. I've got some savings in the bank, but I don't even want to think about spending it. I put it away for my daughter's college tuition. On top of that, I've been feeling sick. I've got a shortness of breath. I even fainted at work a couple of times. So I decided to go and see a doctor. The doctor examined me and did medical tests. So a week later, I got my test results in the mail. I opened the envelope and I couldn't believe my eyes. There were a lot of eligible medical terms, but the most important thing I understood from all this writing was that my diagnosis was disappointing. I'm seriously ill and I can't be cured. The doctor believed I had only a couple of months of my life left. I was desperate, but I didn't say anything to my family. I spent the whole day sitting outside and I thought, "My Lord, what happens to me?" And then, when it got dark, a wild thought came to my mind. It was my first wild thought in my 42 years. I never lived my life the way I wanted. I always lived my life as it was the right thing to do. And if I don't have much lifetime left, so I'm gonna break free, okay? That's how my crazy adventures started. The first thing I did was to get a good and long night's sleep. I was an hour late for my work next morning, and I went straight to my boss and told him face to face everything I thought about him. Then I walked up to Sandy, our cashier, and I grabbed her wrist tight and kissed her. Then I proudly walked out of our store with my head up. The whole team was in shock, and Sandy shouted at me, "Give me a call." When I got outside, I put on my glasses and threw away my tie. I always hated it. As a next step, I went to my bank and took all my money in cash and closed my bank accounts. My bank manager was very upset to lose such a good and long-term client like me. Next, I went to a glamorous dress shop and I bought myself all the best clothes I ever dreamed of in my life. A leather jacket with spikes, torn skinny jeans, and pricey sneakers. I also went to the barber shop and got myself a new wild haircut and had my hair dyed blue. Now I looked like a rock star and not like a sales manager. My daughter will love my new style. You'd think I was just having a middle-life crisis. Okay, let all the others think this way, It will be just a perfect cover. For the next couple of months, I'll do whatever I want and whenever I want. My daughter was staying with my wife, so no one would look for me. What could happen to me, to the most boring, ordinary person in the world? I did a lot of crazy things in the next few days. I was bungee jumping from a 100 feet high bridge. I was scuba diving in a cage surrounded by bloodthirsty sharks. I was running on hot coals with Tibetan monks. I even volunteered to take part in the knife throwing performance. My to-do wish list was big and crazy, but there wasn't much time left. So I chose my two major dreams to pursue. First, I wanted to jump with a parachute. So I attended a brief 2-day training and bought myself a new parachute. And my second wish was to surf the California waves. I bought myself the most expensive surfboard and I drove to the ocean. I always wanted to learn to surf the waves since I was a kid. I secured the board on the roof of my car, got my parachute in the car trunk, and hit the road. While I was driving on the highway, I got a really crazy idea on my mind. I pressed the gas accelerator pedal with a stone picked up at the side of the road, and then I locked the car steering wheel in one position. Then I climbed up to the roof, stood up on my surfboard, and posed on it like a professional surfer. Isn't it crazy? If someone told me a week ago that I was going to do something like that, I would never believe it. This was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. Well, I can imagine I looked quite scary at that moment, as the car driver who was driving close to me looked frightened and pulled over to the side of the road. I was soaring at full speed on my board. My hair was all messed up. I closed my eyes for a moment and imagined that I was sliding on the ocean waves. It lasted for about 10 minutes. And then I heard the police siren sound from a police car. And a voice in the loudspeaker told me to get back in the car immediately and pull the car over for my own safety. I knew they wouldn't let me free if I stopped. I climbed back into the car. The police car followed me. They signaled me and demanded to pull over. I was already thinking of stopping my car, but then I remembered I was driving to meet the California waves. So I quickly grabbed the first thing that I got my eye on. It was a local morning paper. I threw the paper out of the window and it hit the front windshield of the police car. The police car lost control. The driver hit the brakes and the car pulled over and hit the tree. In the rearview mirror, I saw the driver got out of the car and angrily kicked the wheel. The other guy got out and was saying something on the police radio. There was smoke coming from under the car hood. You suckers, I thought. I just committed my first crime in my life. But I calmed myself because I didn't do any harm. I was sure they would broadcast on my vehicle, so I had to get rid of it. On my way on, I traded my brand new Dodge for a local farmer's old rusted pickup truck and moved on to the ocean to meet the California waves. A couple of days later, I was already in Los Angeles. This time I rented a gorgeous sports car. I always dreamed of driving a Ferrari. Before driving to the ocean, I decided to have a quick snack. I stopped for a burrito at a local road diner. It was near the police station. All of a sudden, I saw a familiar portrait on the wanted posters. I recognized my blue hair. It was me. So they were looking for me. I turned around and suddenly I bumped into a guy. I splashed my burrito sauce all over his shirt. I also had a mustard tube in my other hand. The guy got angry and swore as he tried to clean his shirt. Then he looked at me and froze in shock. It was the highway driver cop, and he immediately recognized me. He was dressed like a civilian this time. The first thing that came to my mind was to spray mustard in his face and get away as fast as I could. I quickly jumped into my Ferrari and took off. I also grabbed my new parachute and put it on just in case. And I did not regret it later on. So the cop will most likely report me immediately, and then they will announce a citywide manhunt to catch me. But I decided to get to the ocean and ride the waves whatever it takes. A few minutes later, I heard the police sirens coming, and I could see the first police car following me. Then I saw more and more police cars. There was a whole motorcade escort following me. Then I saw a police helicopter in the sky. The police cars tried to block my way, but I was moving fast and making quick turns. My race car was sleek and fast, and I was driving as fast as I could. Then they started to shoot at my car wheels, but they never hit me because I was driving in zigzags. Meanwhile, my daughter was watching TV, and she saw the local news announcement that the local police forces were pursuing a Ferrari with a driver who had blue hair. I finally drove to the ocean embankment, and there was a film studio set built in the open air with a huge springboard. I pressed the speed pedal with a stone again and climbed up to the car roof. I had a parachute on my back. When the Ferrari took off at full speed and hung in the air, I pushed off my feet and pulled the parachute ring. I soared up into the sky and saw my Ferrari falling underneath. I also saw a motorcade of police cars smashing into each other as they all tried to stop just before the springboard. What I did was just in the best traditions of Hollywood blockbusters. I couldn't believe I just did it. If I hadn't had a parachute, I would have crashed. After all my adventures, they finally caught me. I was arrested, then I was interviewed, and a lot of other interesting things were underway. There was a story on TV about me all over the country. When my wife and daughter found out about what happened to me, they took the first flight to Los Angeles to help me out. When we all met, I told them everything about my medical diagnosis and my adventures. My daughter was so proud of her cool dad. My wife said she would not proceed with divorce and would stay with me, and that she loved me very much. But time was against me and I was ready to pass away. I lay on the floor and closed my eyes, but time passed and nothing happened. And then another week went by, and I finally got a letter from a doctor. The earlier medical diagnosis that he had sent to me turned out to be totally wrong. The medical lab made a mistake and mixed up the tests. So I was perfectly healthy, and all my sporadic sick discomfort was just the result of my overall exhaustion. As for the police verdict, finally I was not charged. I did not harm anyone after all, except for the Ferrari car. In fact, they were so impressed with my bravery and boldness that I got a job offer from the police. They offered me to work as an undercover agent and help them solve and investigate complex criminal cases. And yes, I agreed. By the way, the video of my driving adventure got on the internet and became viral. And it so strongly impressed a famous movie director that he called me and invited me to work for his great team of stunt guys. So thanks to this occasion, I found a new super interesting job. I also got my wife back and I won my daughter respect. And I also found out who I really am. I experienced living in two extremes, as a boring office employee and as a reckless adventurer. But now I realized that happiness is somewhere in between. Next year, I plan to go to the Himalayas together with my family and climb Mount Everest. But first, I have to pay out my loan for a broken Ferrari. And what is the craziest thing you ever did in your life? And how did it change your life? I'm waiting for your answers in the comments. And if you liked my story, subscribe to the channel and give it a like.